1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. Breaking down the NBA Finals Game 4 last night. The Warriors 21-point victors over the Cavs, 103-82. We bring in Joe Manganiello of the Watertown Daily Times and the Crossover Chronicles to break it down. Joe, how are you?
Brady, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. A little better than the Cavs are after last night. 21-point win for the Warriors. What were your immediate takeaways from Game 4, and is this series heading back to Golden State with the Warriors back in firm control?
I think that last night was finally a chance to see the real Golden State Warriors. You know, they never quite looked comfortable through the first three games. They let LeBron James dictate the tempo of the entire series the first three games. And last night, Golden State looked comfortable. They were moving great with the basketball. The thing was zipping around in the half court. Every time Cleveland would come up and blitz Steph, he'd get the ball to Draymond, and Draymond was making sound decisions. But this game comes down to Andre Iguodala, and you and I were texting a little bit last night. It was really great to see Iguodala get the national praise that his career deserves. I mean, this is a guy who represented the country in the Olympic Games 2012, and we're talking about one of the best defenders of his generation, and he showed it last night on LeBron.
The Cavs got up 7-0, and they had that immediate blitz, and it was fun to watch. The crowd was into it. But as that first quarter got going and that score got up into the mid-20s, you just knew that the game was being played at a pace that it had not been played at previously in the series. That you knew that even though the Cavs had that initial onslaught, you knew that pace was going to favor Golden State, and it certainly did, right?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland popped a hole in the ball the first three games, and they were like, we don't think that you can guard LeBron James straight up. We're going to let him take as many shots as he wants because that's the style of play that's going to net us a victory. And 2 out of 3 times it worked. Finally, last night, you saw Golden State say, yeah, you know what, we're going to slide Iguodala into the starting lineup. We're going to take Bogut out. Bogut's been largely ineffective so far. And they played up and down, and that style dramatically changes the way the series is going to be played. It benefits Golden State. I thought it was cool out of the timeout. Kerr drew up an isolation play for Curry, and he hasn't been willing to do that through 3 games. Curry came right out, attacked Dellavedova, got himself a step-back 3, nailed it, and the game never looked the same after that. And I think games 5 through 7, who knows, maybe Golden State will win the next 2 and it'll be over in 6. That's what we need. We need to see Curry attack that matchup with Dellavedova, Thompson attack his matchup if he has the advantage. Golden State needs to find these one-on-ones and exploit them, and they're also going to have to win the transition battle. Last night they did.
Was the biggest adjustment that Golden State made from games 2 and 3 to game 4, was it just Iguodala in the starting lineup? Was it Kerr drawing up an offense that predicated on more ball movement? Because it looked like Golden State could get an open jumper whenever they wanted to by driving in and then kicking out. Or was it not an adjustment Kerr made at all? Was it just the increased play and productivity of Draymond Green?
I think inserting Iguodala into the starting lineup means a lot of things. It's even more than just a basketball sense. You got to remember, Iguodala is a very prideful player. He's been in the league a long time. He's earned his stripes. And Kerr, as a first-year head coach, came in, and that was the first move he made. He told Iguodala, look, we want you to lead our bench unit. We need you coming off the bench, and we want Harrison starting. Harrison Barnes is a young guy. We need him playing with the starters. And all season long, Iguodala has accepted that role. And finally, now down 2-1, because remember, they were down 2-1 against Memphis, and they didn't budge. They stuck to what they did, and they came back for the vengeance. But I think Kerr recognized that this series was going to be different. They're playing LeBron James. They needed to make the adjustment. And Kerr puts Iguodala back in, and it really freed them up to play the preferred style that's going to win them this series. And you know that means a lot. But I also think, Brady, Golden State also just recognized the opportunities that were in front of them despite the losses. I mean, Draymond Green had a noticeable confidence in Game 4 that wasn't there in Games 2 and 3, and maybe he was feeling a little bit better. I know he's been dealing with a back injury, but at this point, Draymond would be the first to tell you this, they're all dealing with injuries. But Draymond, operating out of the nail, was passing the ball, was taking the shot that was given to him, and that wasn't the case in Games 2 and 3, and that was a large part of why they were losing. So I just think the confidence on the offensive end, whether it was in transition or in the half court, that was what really turned the game last night.
LeBron didn't look quite the same to me as he had looked in games 1 through 3. I'm not going to say he looked tired, but he just certainly didn't look that aggressive. Now, Golden State did change up the defense. They were doubling him a lot more frequently, and LeBron, being the facilitator that he is, was willing to pass out of that double team. Do you think he needed to be more aggressive last night?
Well, first of all, I think we should stop and think about just that the workload he had accomplished through those first three games, right? Everyone knows he scored more points in the first three games of the finals than any player in NBA history, which is astonishing. But he also had a usage rate that was flirting with 40%. He was doing twice the work of an average player, and I believe he was averaging 34 shots per game. So there was no way, even LeBron James, a physical marvel, there was no way he was going to be able to keep that up for 7 games if the series went 7 games. But last night he only put up 22 shots, so that's a dozen shots less. So I think that's a fair point, Brady. I mean, this team probably needs LeBron to shoot 30 times, and as inefficient as that might be, it also gives them an advantage because it's LeBron shooting. You know, if the one thing that they have over Golden State is that they have the best player in the world. He goes 7 for 22, and you saw that they fell in love with the post play. They got Mozgov and Thompson 16 combined shots, and those guys shot well. But, you know, there was a theory floating around online last night that despite the great production from Mozgov and Thompson, that was what Golden State wanted. They want the ball out of LeBron's hands. I would be pretty surprised in Game 5 if LeBron doesn't come out looking for more shots, especially down the stretch in the second half. You know, I think that's really the one play that Cleveland has, is they have LeBron, and he needs to be the fulcrum of what they do on offense.
What is going on with J.R. Smith? Because the Cavs, they need to shoot well from the outside, especially if LeBron's going to get doubled, he's always going to have an open shooter. They need productivity out of Dellavedova on the outside, and they need it out of J.R. Smith because he is the one guy in the absence of Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving that has the ability to go for 25-30 at any given time. We've seen that in the playoffs. He got red hot against Atlanta. He's gotten hot against Chicago, but it just has not been there for him in this series. What's going on with his play?
Well, J.R., you know, he threw up a dud last night, and even at the highest level, you know, guys are capable of doing that. We saw that from Harrison Barnes in Game 3. He had an over. But the difference is Cleveland has no margin for error. I mean, they're down to 7 bodies and Mike Miller. And, you know, they need J.R. Smith to give them something. And he finishes with 4 points. When he was on the floor last night, he was minus 27. The team was outscored by 27 points in his 28 minutes. So that's not good enough. You know, I don't think Cleveland can win, even if LeBron has a game for the ages. If one of their final role players that they're down to puts up an 0 for 8 3-point night, 2 for 12 from the field, 4 points, that might be enough to tank their game. They need more shots. So I don't know exactly what the answer is besides just making them. I mean, JR got some pretty good JR shots. It's always tough to tell with him because he almost refuses to take an open jumper. He always likes to drive in and get a contested look. He's been pretty vocal about that. He just needs to make them. The one thing I'll tell you, Brady, you know, Dellavedova was the sort of talk of the town in games 2 and 3. He really got exposed last night, and I don't think it's his fault. Look, a lot of people are falling in love with this game because he was such a scrappy player. He's doing the best he can. He's just not an upper echelon offensive creative guy. You know, he was 3 for 14 last night, largely because he was asked to do things that he shouldn't be doing. But this is what happens when you're down to the amount of bodies Cleveland has. They don't really have a point guard left on the roster unless you count LeBron. Dellavedova's a little out of his element, and I thought Golden State did a good job of exploiting that last night.
Am I naive to think that Sean Marion or Kendrick Perkins could contribute at least 4 minutes a game or something here to help the Cavs out?
I don't think you're naive to say that. I mean, there's no way to know exactly what they have left. I mean, Sean Marion, unfortunately, because I love Sean Marion. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen him ball this year. And, you know, Kendrick Perkins, to a large extent, is the same thing. I don't know how much they have left, but you have to figure whatever guys could go at this point, David Blatt has to strongly consider putting them in. I know they've been trying to sneak Mike Miller on the floor, hoping that, you know, worst case he can get open for a jumper or something, but they really only got 7 bodies left, it seems. And look, that would be, if Cleveland can come back to win this series, I don't know historically if a team has ever won with as limited a rotation as they have. I mean, it's really crazy to think about losing Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving in the middle of the postseason and still doing what they do. It's not like they played, you know, the 1980s, Celtics or Lakers during their run to the finals, but they made it to the finals, and that's a hard thing to do in today's game. And look, LeBron through 4 games here has done about as much as he can do. I don't know, man. I just feel like maybe we've seen Cleveland's fastest pitch and Golden State. They just got a little bit more game than them. I don't know. They only have so many options when you have a 7-man rotation.
Are we going back to Golden State now, knowing is this series over in 6 in your mind?
I think Cleveland could pull off Game 6. I would be pretty surprised if they win Game 5. I think Golden State is gonna do really well on their home floor, bringing it back to Oracle. The fans are gonna go nuts. But I'm not gonna count LeBron out from he can one-man a Game 6. But I don't think Golden State's gonna drop either of these home games. I predicted Golden State in 6 before the season started. I think a lot of people did too. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland takes it to Game 7, but Golden State's going to win this series.
Joe Manganiello, Watertown Daily Times, Crossover Chronicles, NBA expert, breaking down Game 4 of the NBA Finals with us here today, 1045theteam.com. Joe, thank you.
Thanks, Brady.